I returned from my 14-day Caribbean cruise and found my house empty. My son-in-law was at the door with a couple I did not know. "Father-in-law, these are the new owners. We have sold everything. You are going to live with us now." I looked him in the eye, smiled quietly, and took out my phone. I called my lawyer right in front of them, and Gerald went pale. What my son-in-law Gerald did not know was that the property was protected by something he never bothered to learn about during our 5 years of strained family relations. The taxi driver who dropped me off had already left. I stood on my own front porch, my suitcase beside me, staring at 3 strangers who seemed to be occupying my home of 30 years. The couple behind Gerald looked uncomfortable, shifting their weight from one foot to the other. "Gerald, what are you talking about?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "Where is all my furniture, my belongings, the lifetime of memories that Elaine and I built in this house?" Gerald adjusted his designer glasses and spoke with that condescending tone he always used with me. "Douglas, we have been through your finances. After Elaine passed, you have been hemorrhaging money. The medical bills, the mortgage you refinanced, it was all too much. Amanda and I made the responsible decision to sell the house before the bank took it. You should be thanking us." I looked past them into the empty living room where my favorite recliner once sat. The chair Elaine bought me for our 25th anniversary. The walls were bare. No photos, no paintings. The built-in bookshelf that once housed my architectural books was empty. "And where is Amanda?" I asked. "She is preparing your room at our house. Look, these nice people have already moved in. The papers are signed. This is better for everyone." The couple behind him finally spoke up. The man extended his hand. "I am Peter Daniels, and this is my wife Jessica. We are very sorry for the confusion, but we were assured everything was in order with the sale." I ignored his hand. My mind was racing, calculating. I had been gone for exactly 14 days. I left on a Monday morning and returned on a Monday afternoon. Somehow, in that short time, my son-in-law had emptied my house and sold it to strangers. "May I at least come in and see what you have done to my home?" I asked. Gerald blocked the doorway. "Douglas, be reasonable. These people have just moved in. Besides, it is not your home anymore. We should just go to our house now. Amanda is waiting." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Gerald's expression changed from smug superiority to confusion. "Who are you calling?" he demanded. "Harriet Jefferson," I replied calmly. "Milavier," Gerald scoffed. "You do not have a lawyer, Douglas. We know you cannot afford one, but I did have a lawyer. Harriet had been Elaine's college roommate and had handled all our legal affairs for decades." I put the phone on speaker so Gerald could hear. "Harriet Jefferson speaking." "Harriet, it is Douglas Wilson. I have just returned from my cruise to find my son-in-law has apparently sold my house without my knowledge or consent. He claims to have signed papers. I am standing outside my own home right now, with the supposed new owners." There was a pause on the line. "Douglas, do not say another word. Do not sign anything. I will be there in 20 minutes. The color drained from Gerald's face. What he did not know was that the property was placed in a living trust after Elaine's diagnosis 2 years ago. A trust that Gerald knew nothing about because he never bothered to actually look at our legal arrangements. He had always treated me like a senile old fool who could not manage his own affairs. The most shocking revelation came when Frank, my next-door neighbor for 20 years, walked over from his porch. "Douglas, thank goodness you are back. I have been trying to reach you for days. I saw them emptying your house last week. I called the police, but they showed some paperwork claiming they had authorization." Gerald shot Frank a venomous look. "This does not concern you. Actually," Frank continued, "I took videos of everything they removed. I knew something was not right, and I kept an inventory as best I could. For the first time since arriving, I felt a small sense of control returning. What Gerald did not realize was that he had not just betrayed his father-in-law. He had betrayed a man who had spent 40 years as an architect planning for contingencies, paying attention to details, and always having a backup plan. Peter and Jessica Daniels looked increasingly uncomfortable as they realized they might be involved in something illegal. "Gerald, you assured us his daughter had power of attorney," Peter said. You said he was suffering from early dementia and could not manage his own affairs, and there it was. The lies were beginning to unravel already. The missing piece that Gerald never bothered to discover was that I was far from financially ruined. In fact, Elaine and I had planned meticulously for our retirement, including her potential early death. What looked like financial struggle to an outsider was actually a carefully structured asset protection strategy. Gerald insisted I come with him to their house while we sorted things out. With my suitcase still unpacked from the cruise, I found myself in their guest room. The walls were an oppressive gray, and the small window overlooked their neighbor's brick wall. This was to be my new prison, according to Gerald's plan. Amanda rushed in, minutes after we arrived, her eyes red from crying. She threw her arms around me. Dad, I am so sorry about how this happened, but we had to make quick decisions. The bank was going to foreclose, and we found buyers who could close fast. I held my daughter at arm's length. Amanda, who told you the bank was foreclosing on my house? Gerald showed me the notices, she said, confusion crossing her face. The threatening letters from the bank. The medical bills piling up. You never told me how bad things had gotten after Mom died. Gerald stood in the doorway, arms crossed. Douglas, we can discuss the details later. You must be tired from your trip. Why not rest, and we will have dinner as a family tonight? I nodded, playing along. That sounds reasonable. I am a bit overwhelmed. Once they left, I immediately called Harriet again. She answered on the first ring. Douglas, I went by your house. Those people would not let me in without you present. I have already filed emergency motions to halt any transfer of funds from the sale. What exactly happened? I explained everything I had learned so far. Gerald told Amanda the bank was foreclosing. He showed her fake documents to make her believe I was financially ruined. That is fraud, Douglas. Multiple counts. Forgery. Elder abuse. We can have him arrested today. Not yet, I replied. I need to understand the full scope of what he has done, and I need to protect Amanda. She is a victim too. After hanging up, I noticed a pill container on the nightstand with my name on it. I did not recognize the medication. I carefully pocketed it for later investigation. That evening, dinner was a tense affair. Gerald dominated the conversation, explaining to me how they would manage my finances from now on, how they would make my limited Social Security stretch by having me live with them, how the sale of the house had barely covered my outstanding debts. What about my belongings? I asked. My books? My architectural drawings? Elaine's piano? Gerald waved dismissively. We had to sell most of it to cover moving costs. Some things are in storage. Amanda looked down at her plate. Dad, I saved Mom's jewelry box and your wedding album. They are in our closet. Gerald shot her an irritated look. We might need to sell those too, depending on how the finances work out. I watched my daughter shrink under his gaze. This was not the confident, vibrant woman Elaine and I had raised. Something had changed in her since marrying Gerald 5 years ago. Later that night, I snuck out to the backyard and called Frank. What exactly did you see them removing from the house? Everything, Douglas. Furniture, appliances, books. They had a dumpster for some things. But most concerning was when Gerald spent hours in your home office, going through all your papers. He took boxes of documents. That confirmed my worst fear. Gerald had been looking for financial information. What he could not have known was that my most important documents were not in the house at all. Years of working with international clients had taught me to always have secure backup systems. The next morning, I feigned confusion about where the bathroom was, allowing me to wander through their house. In Gerald's home office, I found a stack of mail addressed to me that had been rerouted to their address. I quietly took photos with my phone. When Gerald left for work, I confronted Amanda gently. Honey, why did you believe the house was in foreclosure? Tears filled her eyes. Gerald showed me the notices. Red letters, threats of eviction, and your bank statements showing overdrafts. The medical bills from Mom's treatments that were still unpaid. He said you were too proud to tell me. And did you ever call the bank yourself to verify this? Her expression told me everything. Gerald handled all of that. He said his friend at the bank was helping expedite things to avoid public foreclosure proceedings that would embarrass you. I took her hand. Amanda, I need you to listen carefully. Your mother and I paid off her medical bills through our insurance and savings. The house was not in foreclosure. Gerald has lied to you. She pulled her hand away. Dad, that cannot be right. Gerald would never. But doubt had crept into her voice. Did you sign any documents regarding my house? She nodded slowly. Gerald said you had signed a power of attorney before your cruise. He had me countersign some papers as a witness. My heart sank. Gerald had forged my signature and used my own daughter to give the forgery credibility. Later that day, I met secretly with Harriet at a coffee shop 3 blocks away. I showed her the photographs I had taken of my redirected mail. This is mail fraud, she said. Federal offense. Douglas, this gets worse by the hour. I have confirmed with the county records that the deed transfer was filed last Wednesday. Gerald provided a power of attorney document that gives him full control over your affairs. The signature looks convincing, but we know it is forged. What about the money from the sale? I asked. Harriet's expression darkened. That is what concerns me most. The sale price was $400,000, well below market value for your neighborhood. The money was wired to an account in Gerald's name only, not a joint account with Amanda. Most of it was immediately transferred out in several large withdrawals. That night, I overheard Gerald on the phone in his office. The door was slightly ajar. I told you I would have the rest by Friday, he hissed. The old man's retirement accounts are harder to access than I thought. I need the original power of attorney document back. The lawyer is asking questions. There was a pause. No, you listen to me. I paid off half your gambling debt with this house sale. You will get the rest when I get access to his investment accounts. Just keep your mouth shut and be patient. The final piece clicked into place. Gerald had not just stolen my house. He had used the proceeds to pay off gambling debts. And now he was after my retirement savings. The most devastating revelation came when I searched for the paperwork from my cruise while Gerald and Amanda were out. In an envelope containing my cruise documents, I found a brochure for a memory care facility 3 states away. Gerald planned to declare me incompetent, drain my accounts, and warehouse me where no one would find me. Over the next few days, I carefully maintained the facade of a confused old man who accepted his new living arrangement. I shuffled when I walked around Gerald and spoke with deliberate slowness. I asked the same questions repeatedly and pretended to forget recent conversations. All the while, I was gathering allies and evidence. My first ally was Frank, who had already proven his loyalty. Through him, I reconnected with my other neighbors and discreetly spread the word that I had not willingly sold my house. I have something you should see, Frank told me during one of my permitted walks around the block that Amanda had negotiated with Gerald. He handed me a thumb drive. Security camera footage from my front porch. Shows them emptying your house over 3 days. Gerald supervised everything himself. My second ally came from an unexpected source. During my cruise, I had befriended a retired detective named Sarah Thompson. We had bonded over early morning coffee on the ship's deck, watching the sunrise together for 14 days straight. I had mentioned my strained relationship with my son-in-law, never imagining how prescient that conversation would be. I called Sarah from a grocery store payphone while Amanda was shopping inside. I need someone with investigative experience, I explained. Someone Gerald does not know. Say no more, Sarah replied. I will be there tomorrow. I will stay at a hotel and say, I am an old friend from your working days if anyone asks. My third ally was already in place. Harriet had been building a legal case methodically, gathering evidence of the fraud and forgery. She had confirmed with my bank that no foreclosure proceedings had ever been initiated. The power of attorney document is definitely forged, she told me, during our second clandestine meeting. And I have more concerning news. This is not Gerald's first fraud. Under his birth name, Gerald Peterson, he has a record in Nevada for similar scams targeting elderly homeowners. He changed his name 10 years ago. The pieces were falling into place. Gerald had targeted my daughter, married her, and spent 5 years setting up his ultimate con, waiting for Elaine to pass away before making his move. I needed to retrieve vital documents that Gerald had missed. Before leaving for my cruise, I had hidden copies of my most important papers in a weatherproof container buried under a loose paving stone in my garden shed. The new owners had not changed the locks yet, focused on renovating the interior first. Under the guise of apologizing to the Daniels family for my confusion on the first day, Amanda took me to visit my former home. While she awkwardly made conversation with Jessica Daniels, I slipped out to the shed and retrieved my hidden documents. Among them was the trust document, showing the house had been placed in an irrevocable trust with Amanda as the beneficiary, not me. Gerald could not legally have sold it, even with a valid power of attorney. The most shocking discovery came from Sarah's investigation. She had followed Gerald one evening when he claimed to be working late. He met with this man. She showed me a photograph on her phone. I ran his face through a database I still have access to. Johnny Wells, known associate of loan sharks in 3 states. The gambling debts, I murmured. There is more, Sarah continued. The new owners of your house? They are not really married, and their names are not Peter and Jessica Daniels. The man is Richard Wells, Johnny's brother. They are part of the scheme. With this revelation, the entire picture became clear. Gerald had not actually sold my house on the legitimate market. He had transferred it to his gambling debt collectors as partial payment, using forged documents to make it appear legitimate. That night, I took an enormous risk. While Gerald and Amanda were sleeping, I used Gerald's own computer to access his email. His password was pathetically easy to guess. Amanda's birthday. The emails confirmed everything. Conversations with Johnny Wells about using my house to clear part of a $600,000 gambling debt. Plans to access my retirement accounts next. And most disturbing, consultation with a doctor about having me declared mentally incompetent. I forwarded the most incriminating emails to Harriet before carefully covering my tracks. But as I was about to leave his office, I noticed a folder on his desk labeled Douglas Wilson Medical. Inside were prescriptions for medications I had never been prescribed, including powerful antipsychotics and sedatives. With horror, I realized these were likely the pills Gerald had been placing on my nightstand, possibly even mixing into my food to make me genuinely confused and compliant. The next morning, I accidentally knocked over my orange juice at breakfast, creating a distraction that allowed me to pocket the pills Gerald had set beside my plate rather than consuming them. Amanda had begun noticing discrepancies in Gerald's stories. "Dad," she asked me privately, "did you really sign a power of attorney before your cruise? Gerald said you did it at his office with his notary friend, but that does not sound like something you would do without telling me." I chose my words carefully. "Honey, I want you to think about everything Gerald has told you about my finances. Has he ever shown you original documents from my bank, or just copies he provided?" I could see the doubt growing in her eyes. Mostly copies he already had. She trailed off, the implications sinking in. "Amanda, I need you to do something for me. Call the bank yourself. Ask about the foreclosure notices. Use my social security number, which you know as my emergency contact." She agreed reluctantly. An hour later, she found me in the guest room, her face pale. "The bank says there were never any foreclosure proceedings. They said the mortgage had been." She paused, struggling with the revelation, paid in full 3 years ago. "Right after Mom got sick. Your mother and I always planned for the worst while hoping for the best," I explained gently. "We restructured everything when she got her diagnosis." "Gerald lied to me," she whispered, tears forming. "But why would he do this?" "I think you need to look through his office," I suggested. "But be careful. Do not let him know you suspect anything yet." The final piece of evidence came unexpectedly. While searching for her birth certificate in their bedroom closet, Amanda found a burner phone hidden in Gerald's sock drawer. The text messages were explicit. Conversations with Johnny and Richard Wells about the house scheme, the forged documents, and plans to get the old man declared incompetent so they could clean out the retirement accounts next. Amanda confronted Gerald that evening. I had advised against it, wanting to wait until all our legal preparations were in place. But her anger overrode caution. "You lied to me about everything," she screamed, waving the burner phone. "The foreclosure, the power of attorney, all of it. You sold my childhood home to pay your gambling debts." Gerald's face transformed. The charming, concerned son-in-law mask dropped completely, revealing the cold calculator beneath. "You stupid woman. Your father was wasting that asset, sitting on a paid-off house while living on a fixed income. I put it to better use." "By stealing it?" Amanda's voice rose higher. "By planning to steal his retirement too?" Gerald grabbed her arm roughly. Keep your voice down. The old man will hear you. Let go of her, I said from the doorway, where I had been listening. Now. Gerald released her arm but turned his anger toward me. This is your fault. You turned her against me. You did that yourself, I replied calmly. With every lie you told. Gerald's eyes narrowed. It does not matter. The house is gone. The money is mostly gone, and who do you think the authorities will believe? A confused old man with dementia? Or his concerned son-in-law who has been managing his affairs? I am not confused, and I do not have dementia, I said firmly. Those pills you have been trying to give me went down the toilet, not down my throat. For the first time, Gerald looked uncertain. You cannot prove anything. Actually, I pulled out my phone. I have been recording our conversation. This, plus the evidence we have already gathered, will be more than enough for the police. Gerald lunged for my phone, but I stepped back quickly for a man my age. Amanda, get your things. We are leaving. You are not going anywhere, Gerald snarled, blocking the doorway. Amanda, he is confused. Remember how the doctor said he would make up stories? This is exactly what we were warned about. Amanda looked between us, tears streaming down her face. There is one way to settle this. Show me the original foreclosure notices, Gerald. Not copies. The originals with official letterhead. We do not have time for this nonsense, Gerald deflected. Because they never existed, I stated firmly. Just like the doctor who supposedly diagnosed me with dementia does not exist. The confrontation might have turned violent, if not for a knock at the front door. Gerald tried to ignore it, but the knocking became more insistent. Police! Open up! Gerald's face went pale. What have you done? He hissed at me. I called them earlier today, I replied calmly. They have been waiting for my signal that Amanda is safe. When Gerald opened the door, 2 officers stood there with Harriet beside them. Gerald Wilson? One officer asked. Yes, Gerald replied, trying to regain his composure. What is this about? We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of fraud, forgery, elder abuse, and mail fraud, the officer stated, producing the document. Please turn around and place your hands behind your back. As they handcuffed him, Gerald shouted, This is a mistake. He has dementia. He does not know what he is saying. The second officer turned to me. Sir, are you Douglas Wilson? I am, I confirmed. We have some questions for you as well. And we understand there is a situation regarding your property. Harriet stepped forward. My client has been the victim of a complex fraud scheme. We have filed all the relevant documentation with the court. The so-called new owners of his property are also involved in the fraud. Gerald's face contorted with rage as he was led to the police car. Amanda, tell them! Tell them your father has been confused! Tell them we were helping him! But Amanda stood beside me, her arm around my shoulders. The only one confused was me, Gerald. Confused by your lies. After Gerald was taken away, Amanda collapsed into tears. Dad, I am so sorry. I believed him. I helped him do this to you. I held her tightly. You were deceived by someone who has made a career out of deception. This is not your fault. The most unexpected development came later that evening. As Amanda and I were packing her essential belongings to leave Gerald's house, she suddenly rushed to the bathroom. When she emerged, her face was ashen. Dad, there is something else you should know. She took a deep breath. I am pregnant. About 8 weeks along. I just confirmed it yesterday. The news hit me like a physical blow. My grandchild would be connected to Gerald forever. But looking at Amanda's frightened face, I knew this changed nothing about our path forward. Then we have even more reason to set things right, I said, squeezing her hand. This child deserves a legacy of honesty, not deceit. As we prepared to leave, Gerald's phone rang. Amanda answered it hesitantly. Hello? No. Gerald cannot come to the phone. He has been arrested. She listened for a moment, then her expression hardened. No, I will not be paying his gambling debts. You should talk to the police about your arrangement with him. She hung up and turned to me. That was Johnny Wells. He says Gerald still owes him $200,000. He threatened to come here if the money is not paid by tomorrow. Then we should not be here, I replied. Sarah has offered her guest room until we sort this out. The psychological warfare Gerald had waged became even clearer when we arrived at Sarah's house. Away from his influence, Amanda began to recognize how he had systematically isolated her from friends and family, how he monitored her phone and controlled their finances, how he subtly undermined her confidence and independence. He did the same things to you that he did to me, she realized, making me doubt my own memory and perceptions, making me dependent on him for information and decisions. The next morning brought another shock. Harriet called with news that the police had served a warrant at my former house and discovered something disturbing. The Daniels couple, or rather the Wells brothers, had begun renovating immediately, she explained, not to improve the property, but to hide evidence. They were removing walls where Gerald had hidden documents. The police found financial records from at least 3 other elderly victims in Maryland and Virginia. So Gerald was not just after my assets, I said, the scope of his crimes becoming clearer. No, you appear to be the latest in a series of victims, though you are the first to fight back so effectively. The final revelation of Gerald's psychological manipulation came when Amanda accessed her email from Sarah's computer rather than her phone. In her spam folder, she found dozens of messages from friends and family that Gerald's email filters had diverted, including invitations, check-ins, and concerned messages that she had never seen. He made me think everyone had abandoned me, she whispered, that you were the only family I had left, and you were failing financially, that he was the only one I could rely on. Classic isolation tactics, Sarah explained gently. I saw it countless times in domestic abuse cases during my career. Amanda looked up, startled. But he never hit me. Abuse comes in many forms, Sarah replied. Control, isolation, and psychological manipulation can be just as damaging as physical violence. That night, Amanda received a text from an unknown number. Your father will pay for what he has done. So will you and your baby. Gerald had found a way to threaten us even from jail. The next morning, we met with Detective Williams, who had been assigned to our case. The situation is more complex than we initially thought, he explained. Gerald has been working with these gambling operators for years, identifying potential victims with significant assets. How did he find me? I asked. According to our investigation, he specifically sought out widowers, or recent widows, with properties in desirable neighborhoods. He or an associate would attend support groups for bereaved spouses. Amanda gasped. That is where we met. At Mom's hospital's grief support group. He said he had lost his wife to the same cancer. Detective Williams nodded grimly. We have no record of him ever being married before you, Miss Wilson. The detective continued. We have frozen all accounts associated with Gerald, but most of the money from your house sale is gone, transferred to offshore accounts, or paid directly to these gambling operators. What about the house itself? I asked. That is more promising. Since the sale was fraudulent and the new owners were complicit in the fraud, the property transfer should be invalidated by the court. As we left the police station, Amanda suddenly doubled over in pain. Dad, she gasped. Something is wrong. The baby. I rushed her to the emergency room, all thoughts of Gerald and the house temporarily forgotten. Hours later, a doctor emerged from the examination room. Miss Wilson is stable, she assured me. She experienced threatened miscarriage, likely due to extreme stress. We want to keep her overnight for observation, but both she and the baby appear to be okay for now. She needs to avoid stress and rest completely for the next few weeks. As I sat beside Amanda's hospital bed, holding her hand while she slept, my phone rang. It was Harriet. Douglas, we have a serious problem. Gerald made bail. My blood ran cold. How? I thought his accounts were frozen. Johnny Wells posted it. I think they are worried Gerald will implicate them in other schemes if he stays in jail. My contact at the prosecutor's office says they are trying to get the conditions of his release modified to include a restraining order, protecting you and Amanda, but that will take time. Amanda is in the hospital, I told her. Pregnancy complications from the stress. We cannot risk Gerald finding her here. I will send someone over right away. A private security officer I trust. Do not let anyone else into her room. The security guard, a former police officer named Michael, arrived 30 minutes later. His presence gave me enough confidence to make a necessary trip while Amanda rested. I needed to see my house, to retrieve any remaining evidence before Gerald or his associates could destroy it. Detective Williams accompanied me, along with a forensics officer, to document everything properly. My heart sank as we pulled up to the property. The beautiful craftsman-style home that Elaine and I had lovingly maintained for 30 years had been partially gutted. Walls were open to the studs, fixtures removed, hardwood floors torn up. They were looking for hidden valuables, Detective Williams explained. It is a common practice in these scams. Victims often hide cash or valuables in their homes. As we walked through what remained of my house, memories flooded back. The corner where Elaine's piano once stood, the kitchen where we had hosted countless family dinners, the back porch where we had watched so many sunsets together. "Sir," the forensics officer called from my former office. "You should see this." Behind where my desk had been, they had opened the wall completely. Inside the cavity was a metal lockbox that had been pried open, empty now, except for a single photograph that had fallen behind it. A picture of Elaine and me on our 30th anniversary. I pocketed the photo and continued the search. In the garden shed, I checked the loose paving stone where I had retrieved my documents earlier. Something made me look more carefully at the surrounding area. One stone over, another paver seemed slightly raised. I had not placed anything there. "Detective," I called, "could you help me move this stone?" Beneath it was a plastic bag containing a USB drive and a handwritten note in Elaine's handwriting. "For Douglas, when you need it most. I love you." I stared at it in disbelief. Elaine had created her own hiding place, separate from mine. Even in her final months, she had been planning, preparing, protecting. We were about to leave when a car screeched to a halt in front of the house. Gerald stepped out, his face contorted with rage. "What are you doing here?" he shouted. "This is not your house anymore." Detective Williams stepped forward. "Mr. Wilson, you should not be here. There is an active investigation ongoing." Gerald ignored him, pointing at me. "You ruined everything. Do you know what Johnny will do to me now? The money is gone, and he wants all of it." "That is not my problem," I replied calmly. "You created this situation yourself." Gerald lunged toward me, but the detective intercepted him. "That is enough. You are violating the conditions of your release by being here. Turn around and put your hands behind your back." As Detective Williams restrained him, Gerald continued shouting threats and obscenities. Another police car arrived, and Gerald was taken away once more, this time with his bail likely to be revoked. Back at the hospital, I found Amanda awake and looking stronger. The security guard Michael remained stationed outside her door. "How are you feeling?" I asked, taking her hand. "Better," she replied. "The doctor says the baby's heartbeat is stronger now." "Dad, I've been thinking about everything. How could I have been so blind about Gerald?" "He is a professional con man," I reminded her. "And he targeted you when you were grieving your mother. We are both victims of his manipulation." I showed her the USB drive and Elaine's note. "Your mother left this for us. Let us see what is on it." Sarah had brought her laptop to the hospital. We inserted the drive and found it contained scanned copies of all our important documents, the trust papers, our wills, insurance policies, and financial records. But most surprisingly, it also contained audio recordings. "I remember this," Amanda said as we listened. "Mom asked to record family conversations during her last months for a legacy project." The recordings included multiple conversations where Gerald subtly probed for information about our finances, asked leading questions about my mental state, and made comments undermining Amanda's confidence in my abilities. Elaine had captured his manipulation tactics long before any of us recognized them for what they were. "She knew," I whispered. "Or at least she suspected he was not what he seemed." "Mom always could read people better than either of us," Amanda replied, tears streaming down her face. The most damning recording was a conversation between Gerald and Elaine when they thought they were alone. Gerald had asked pointed questions about our life insurance and the house title. Elaine had deliberately misled him, making our financial situation sound more precarious than it was. "I was protecting you, even then," came Elaine's voice from the grave. "I love you both so much." Amanda and I held each other, crying for what we had lost, and for Elaine's foresight that might now save us. Our moment was interrupted when Michael burst into the room. "We need to move now. Johnny Wells was just spotted in the hospital parking lot." The next 24 hours passed in a blur. With Michael's help, we executed a hospital transfer to get Amanda to a different facility under an assumed name. Detective Williams arranged police protection, and Sarah stayed with her, while I dealt with the escalating legal situation. Harriet was waiting when I arrived at her office the next morning. "The recordings from Elaine's USB drive are admissible evidence," she confirmed, "and they strengthen our case considerably. The judge has issued a temporary restraining order against Gerald, Johnny Wells, and Richard Wells. None of them can come within 500 feet of you or Amanda." "What about my house?" I asked. "That is more complicated. The court has frozen any further transfers of the property, but unwinding the fraudulent sale will take time. The good news is that with the Wells brothers now under investigation for fraud and criminal conspiracy, their claim to ownership is significantly weakened. But our legal victories felt hollow compared to the personal crisis we faced. Amanda remained hospitalized with pregnancy complications. The doctor had been clear. Any additional stress could endanger both her and the baby. "She needs to be somewhere safe and peaceful to recover," I told Harriet. "Somewhere. Gerald cannot find her." "I might have a solution," Harriet offered. "My sister owns a small guest house in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Very private, excellent internet connection for remote work, and about 3 hours from here. Amanda could recuperate there until the baby comes." The suggestion was perfect, but it raised another painful question. What about the house? All our memories of Elaine are there. Harriet placed her hand on mine. "Douglas, I need to be honest with you. Even if we get the property back, which I believe we will, the damage the Wells brothers did during their renovations is extensive. It may not be financially feasible to restore it." The reality I had been avoiding hit me full force. Even if we won legally, the home Elaine and I had built together was effectively gone. The physical space that had contained 30 years of our shared life had been gutted by Gerald's greed. I drove to Sarah's house, where I was temporarily staying, and found a package waiting for me. Frank had gathered photographs from neighbors of our block parties, holiday celebrations, and everyday moments at my house over the years. A physical reminder that while the structure might be damaged beyond repair, the memories could not be taken from us. That evening, I visited Amanda in her new hospital room. She looked better, with more color in her cheeks. "The doctor says the baby and I are stabilizing," she told me. "If I remain stress-free and on bed rest for another few weeks, the risk of miscarriage drops significantly." I shared Harriet's suggestion about the mountain guest house. Amanda's eyes lit up for the first time in days. "That sounds perfect, Dad. But what about you? And the house?" "I will be close by," I assured her. "And as for the house..." I hesitated, then decided she deserved the complete truth. "It may not be salvageable, honey, but the land still is. Maybe it is time to think about what comes next, rather than trying to recapture what was." Amanda squeezed my hand. "Mom would agree with that. She always said holding on too tightly to the past prevents us from embracing the future." Over the next few days, as we prepared for Amanda's transfer to the mountain retreat, legal developments came rapidly. Gerald's bail was revoked after his confrontation at the house. Johnny and Richard Wells were arrested attempting to leave the country with falsified passports. And most significantly, 2 other victims of similar scams came forward after seeing our case in the local news. One morning, I received a call from an unknown number. "Mr. Wilson? This is Dr. Laura Chen from Memorial Hospital. I understand you might not remember me, but I was part of your wife's oncology team." "Of course I remember you, doctor. You were very kind to Elaine during her treatments. I saw the news about what happened with your house and your son-in-law. I wanted you to know that he approached me 6 months ago, asking for documentation, suggesting you had cognitive decline. I refused, of course, but I thought you should know he was trying to build a false medical record against you." "Thank you for telling me," I replied, adding this new piece to the puzzle of Gerald's elaborate scheme. The day before Amanda was to be transferred to the mountain house, she went into premature labor. At just 28 weeks pregnant, it was a dangerous situation. I paced the hospital waiting room as doctors worked to halt the contractions. Hours later, a tired-looking doctor emerged. "We have stabilized her for now, but she needs complete bed rest for the remainder of the pregnancy. The stress has taken a significant toll on both her and the baby." "Can she still be transferred to the mountain house?" I asked. Not immediately. She needs to remain hospitalized for at least another week. After that, if there are no further complications, she can be moved, but will need medical supervision. This new development forced a change in plans. I needed to secure a safer, more permanent solution for Amanda and my future grandchild. The mountain house was temporary at best. That evening, as I sat by Amanda's bedside, watching her finally sleep peacefully under medication, my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Turn on the local news now." I stepped into the hallway and used my phone to stream the news broadcast. The lead story showed Gerald being led into court in handcuffs. The reporter explained that new evidence had emerged connecting him to a multi-state fraud operation targeting elderly homeowners. The charges now included racketeering and organized criminal conspiracy. When I returned to Amanda's room, I found her awake and calm. "Dad," she said softly, "I have been thinking about the baby. I want to name her Elaine, after Mom." My heart swelled. "Your mother would be honored." "And I have been thinking about something else," Amanda continued. "Remember those tiny house designs you were working on before your cruise? The sustainable community concept?" I nodded, surprised she knew about my retirement project. "What if we used the land from our old house to build the first one? A fresh start, but on the foundation of our family history." The idea struck me with unexpected force. I had been so focused on reclaiming what was lost that I hadn't considered building something new. My architectural drawings had been among the items Gerald destroyed, but the concept remained clear in my mind. The next morning brought the most unexpected development yet. Harriet arrived at the hospital with remarkable news. "Douglas, your wife was even more prepared than we realized." The trust document contained a provision we overlooked initially. In the event of a fraudulent transfer of the property, a secondary trust activates, containing funds specifically designated for legal expenses and temporary housing. I stared at her in disbelief. "Elaine set that up?" Harriet nodded. She clearly anticipated something might happen after she was gone. The secondary trust contains $150,000, untouched by Gerald because he never knew it existed. It was held by a different trustee, a cousin of Elaine's in Seattle. That would be enough to begin building on the property once we get it back, I realized. Amanda's suggestion about the tiny house suddenly becoming viable. Another week passed. Amanda's condition stabilized enough for her transfer to the mountain house, now with a visiting nurse included in our plans. The legal case against Gerald and his associates grew stronger daily as more victims came forward and more evidence emerged, and I began redrawing my designs for the sustainable tiny house community, starting with a mother-in-law unit where I could live while Amanda and baby Elaine occupied the main house. The most powerful moment came when I received an email from Elaine's old account, set to deliver on a specific date. She had written it during her final months, to be sent 2 years after her death. "My dearest Douglas," it read, "if you are reading this, I have been gone for 2 years. I hope you are finding your way forward, though I know how hard that can be. Remember what we always told each other? That love builds things that outlast us. Our love built Amanda, and through her, our legacy continues. Whatever challenges you face now, face them with the knowledge that you are never truly alone. I planned as best I could to protect you and Amanda after I was gone. I hope it was enough. Build something new, my love. Something that brings you joy. That is all I ever wanted for you. Forever yours, Elaine." I showed the email to Amanda when I visited her at the mountain house. She read it through tears. She knew somehow that we would need her help even after she was gone. "Your mother always saw farther ahead than anyone I knew," I replied. "It was what made her such an extraordinary woman. Like the mother, like the daughter," said Sarah, who had driven me to the mountain house. "Amanda has that same strength. I have seen it growing every day as she fights for herself and her baby." 6 months after my return from the cruise that had started this ordeal, Amanda gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Little Elaine came into the world surrounded by a new family we had built. Sarah, Harriet, Frank, and the medical team who had helped Amanda through her difficult pregnancy. As I held my granddaughter for the first time, I whispered to her, "Your grandmother prepared the way for you, and now we will build your future." 1 year later, I stood on the property where my old house had once stood, now transformed into something new and full of promise. The court had invalidated the fraudulent sale, returning the land to the trust Elaine had established. Gerald had pleaded guilty to multiple fraud charges and received a 15-year prison sentence. The Wells brothers and their gambling operation had been dismantled by a multi-state task force. But the greatest transformation was the one Amanda, baby Elaine, and I had undergone. From victims to survivors to creators of a new legacy. Where our family home once stood, we had built the first prototype of my sustainable community concept, a modern, energy-efficient main house for Amanda and baby Elaine, connected to a smaller companion dwelling where I lived. The design had attracted attention from architectural magazines and environmental organizations, leading to a grant to develop more units on adjacent properties we had acquired. "Dad, the reporter from Green Living magazine is here," Amanda called from the main house. She had discovered a talent for project management during our rebuilding process, and now handled the business aspects of what had become Wilson's Sustainable Communities. As I guided the reporter through our property, explaining the rainwater collection system and solar array, I caught sight of Amanda walking baby Elaine around the shared garden that connected our two homes. My granddaughter had her mother's eyes and her grandmother's determined expression. The concept began as a retirement project, I explained to the reporter. But it evolved into something more meaningful after my family experienced housing insecurity firsthand. "You are referring to the fraud case involving your former son-in-law?" the reporter asked. "Yes, though we prefer to focus on the positive outcome rather than the difficult journey. What began as a personal tragedy has transformed into a mission to create housing that keeps families connected while preserving independence." Later that evening, as Amanda, Sarah, Harriet, Frank and I celebrated baby Elaine's first birthday in our shared courtyard, I reflected on the complete circle our story had traveled. "I want to propose a toast," I said, raising my glass. "To Elaine, both of them. To the wisdom that protected us and the future that inspires us. And to you, Dad," Amanda added, "for fighting back when it would have been easier to give up." Sarah, who had become a dear friend and valuable business advisor, smiled. "Douglas has shown all of us that age is not a limitation when defending what matters." Harriet, now the legal counsel for our growing Sustainable Housing Foundation, nodded in agreement. "The legal precedents from your case have already helped 3 other families recover properties lost to similar scams." Frank, who had moved into the 3rd unit we built on the property, raised his glass. "To neighbors who become family, and family who rebuild together." As the evening wound down and Amanda put baby Elaine to bed, I walked to the small memorial garden we had created at the corner of the property. A cherry tree, Elaine's favorite, stood surrounded by her beloved roses. Beneath it, a simple stone reed, "Elaine Wilson, her love built lasting things." I sat on the bench beside the memorial. "You would be proud of what we have created," I said softly. "Amanda is flourishing as a mother and a businesswoman. Your granddaughter is strong and curious, just like you were. And I found purpose again, building something that helps others." The breeze rustled through the cherry tree, now in full bloom, sending a shower of pale pink petals around me. In that moment, I felt Elaine's presence more strongly than I had since her passing. The USB drive she had hidden, the secondary trust she had established, the email scheduled to arrive when we needed encouragement. Most all these were tangible expressions of a love that continued to protect and guide us long after she was gone. The most profound lesson I had learned through our ordeal was that true strength often comes disguised as vulnerability. When Gerald saw me as an aging widower, he assumed I was easy prey. He never understood that a lifetime of loving and being loved by Elaine had given me resources more valuable than the house he stole. Our new homes were designed with security features that would have prevented the type of fraud Gerald perpetrated. Smart locks that required biometric confirmation for access, security cameras monitored through a community network, and most importantly, a close-knit neighborhood where people watched out for each other. 2 years after my ill-fated cruise, I received a letter from Gerald, sent from prison. He expressed remorse, claiming he had found religion and wanted forgiveness. I shared it with Amanda, who had recently started a support group for victims of financial exploitation. "What will you do?" she asked. "I will acknowledge his letter," I replied. "Forgiveness may come in time, but for now, I am focused on building rather than looking backward." The architectural designs Gerald had destroyed had been reborn in an improved form. The sustainable housing concept had evolved into a foundation that helped seniors maintain independence while staying connected to their families. We had broken ground on 3 new communities in neighboring counties. Baby Elaine took her first steps in the garden Elaine and I had lovingly tended for decades. Though the house was new, the soil remembered. The rosebushes we transplanted from salvaged cuttings bloomed more vibrantly than ever. The final piece of our healing came when Amanda met Michael, the security guard who had protected her in the hospital. Their friendship grew naturally into something deeper, based on mutual respect and genuine caring. Unlike Gerald, Michael valued Amanda for herself, not what he could gain from her. On baby Elaine's 2nd birthday, Michael asked Amanda to marry him in our shared garden. She looked to me before answering, a habit from her painful experience with Gerald. "What does your heart tell you?" I asked. She smiled. "That some people come into our lives to take, and others come to give. I have learned the difference now." The small, intimate wedding took place 6 months later under the cherry tree. As I walked Amanda down the aisle, I felt Elaine walking beside us, her legacy of love continuing through generations. Our story, which began with loss and betrayal, had transformed into one of resilience and renewal. The house Gerald thought he was stealing turned out to be merely a structure. The home, the true legacy Elaine and I built, lived on in Amanda, in baby Elaine, and in the community we had created together. Have you ever faced a betrayal that ultimately led to something better? How did you find the strength to rebuild rather than just recover? Share your stories of resilience in the comments below. If our journey from victim to creator resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe to hear more stories of transformation, and share with someone who might need encouragement today. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes the path forward is built on the foundation of what we thought we had lost.